Today we're going to show you how to make potato soup, cream of potato soup. Easy, quick, and a good soup. So we'll get started. First of all, you take your potatoes and put them in your pot. Turn your stove on to a medium heat. Then add your vegetable broth. You can also use chicken broth if you want, but I'm trying to keep this more of a vegetarian option. So I'm going with the vegetable broth. If you don't mind putting vegetable or non-vegetable products in, you can also make this a ham and potato soup or a bacon and potato soup. Just simply add the meat, but that's personal choice. And then I'm going to add a little more vegetable broth because you do want to cover your vegetables up. Eh? Like you don't need them, too covered, but you want to give them a chance to kind of boil in the broth. Now our celery, it's chopped. You want to chop everything fairly fine. You don't want big chunks of vegetables in your soup. It makes it no good. People, if you're making a hearty stew or whatever, fine, but nobody wants big chunks of vegetables in soup is what I find. So chop everything as fine as possible. That could have been even finer, but that's good enough. Then onion, same thing. So a cup of onion and a cup of celery. And a cup of corn, drained. If you're going to use canned corn, you got to make sure you drain all the liquid out of it. And put it in. Just kind of give it a little mix. I might end up adding a little bit more vegetable broth to this just because I do want it to kind of boil together. So now we'll leave this boil. Now that we're at a full boil here, just have a quick look. Give it a little stir just to bring those potatoes up off the bottom. Looks like it's cooking up nice. Just have another check here. This looks to me like it's done. So what I'm going to do is take and strain the juices off, like the broth. I'm going to strain it into a bowl and keep the broth. Do not strain it into the sink, whatever. You want to reserve the broth and the vegetables, but keep them separated for now. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. Right, I've got everything strained and separated. So the first thing we're going to do is add our remaining broth back in, along with our pre-measured cream, 4 cups. And then you gotta have some butter and flour. It's equal parts, so 4 tablespoons of butter to 4 tablespoons of flour. And then you mix it all together to form a paste. And that's your thickening agent for the soup, to thicken the broth. So we'll go ahead and start, once this starts heating up, then we'll stir a bit of that in and start thickening it. Our broth, vegetable broth, and cream mixture is just starting to come to a boil. I can just hear it. Make sure you're cooking this over a medium to low heat too. You don't want to be burning the hell out of it or anything like that. I think we're going to start adding a little bit of our thickening agent now to get this to thicken up. Just slowly working in a little bit at a time. You can use a normal whisk and just whisk it, whisking action. This is a whisker, they call it. It's a whisk that you just put pressure downward and it whisks. Does a little bit of a better job, I find. Again, not a necessary tool though, just nice to have. I'm going to add the remainder of this in now and see if I can't get it to thicken up. As you can see here, it's starting to really get a lot thicker now. It's thickening up, which is what you want. So we'll just give it another minute here, maybe at the most, to allow it to kind of thicken, and then we will add our vegetable mixture. It's starting to just boil, and that's about when she starts to thicken up is what I find. So we'll just make sure we keep stirring it. If you stop, you could risk burning it, and we don't want to go there. Now it's at the thickness that I expect it to be, so I'm going to just remove it from the heat for a minute and go ahead and add our potatoes and celery and corn, our vegetable mixture, I guess you could say, to the soup. Another thing that I do like to add to the soup sometimes is dill, but I don't have any dill and I wasn't able to get any today, so no dill in this soup today, but it does make it good. And like I mentioned earlier, you can add meat or anything. It's kind of up to the individual and how they like it. I like to kind of mash it together, like really mix it in. Kind of bust the potatoes up a bit so you don't got any of them big chunks of potatoes in there, because I don't like a real chunky soup. If you want a real chunky soup, well, you can cut your potatoes into larger cubes and not mash them up like I am, and don't boil them quite as long. But I mean, that's not for me, so this is how I do it. Then I just turn this burner back on to a medium-low heat again. Make sure it's not too hot. And I'm just going to cook it all together for a few minutes. And the one last thing that I want to add is pepper. You can use any kind of a black pepper. About a teaspoon to the pot, but I just guess. I prefer the coarse ground pepper, and that's what I'm using today. And I just kind of mix it in. I'll do it a couple times. Make sure you keep kind of stirring this. We don't want to risk any sort of burning on a nice pot of soup like this. And it's just about done. We'll just, at this point, it's all just a matter of personal preference. I like to cook it, you know, for a few minutes just to kind of get everything together. I mean, theoretically, it's just about ready to eat. The one last thing is some people like to add a little table salt. I'm going to refrain from it. It's just, I don't usually bother. If you want to add salt, you can add it at the table, but a lot of people do add it when they're making it, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with that. And there you have cream of potato soup. Thanks for watching the video, and feel free to check out my Twitter link in the description. I'll also make sure to post the ingredients and recipe in the description for anyone that's interested. Any questions or comments, feel free to submit them to me. Don't forget to subscribe. Happy cooking!